Hi there. Welcome everyone to TinyMCE's AI Assistant workshop. I see that people signed on. Would love to hear from you. Who signed up? Are you an engineer? Are you a customer? Would love to hear who's there. I'd also like to introduce someone who's offline, but is going to be very helpful for all of you during our webinar today. And that is John. John is currently signed in as the TinyMC host on our YouTube account, and he's going to be managing our chat over here. He's the product marketing manager for TinyMCE. You must have seen him around the YouTube channel as well. So without further ado, let's get started. We're going to be talking about TinyMCE AI Assistant. I'll give you a quick overview of what generative AI is, what ChatGPT is, what is TinyMCE, what's our new AI assistant about, and we're also going to be discussing a little bit more about the demo. Try to do a live code through, hopefully no bugs. And really excited to meet everyone today, and hopefully we'll have a good time. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat, and let's get started. So, first and foremost, I would say if you are here, welcome again. Hi, Faith. Hi, Kevin. Everyone who's here, just sign up for a Tiny Cloud account. If you're not already an existing customer, that way you'll get access to all of our premium plugins, including the AI Assistant plugin for 14 days. I'd also highly encourage everyone to sign up for a ChatGPT account because that will enable you to get access to your own OpenAI API key as well. So go ahead, sign on to these two platforms. I believe the links are already in the chat. This is the link for the Tiny Cloud account, and then this is the link for ChatGPT. So please look in the chat for all the links and go ahead and sign up while I'm talking a little bit more about this. So, why are we here today? I feel like a majority of us who are here in the audience have heard of AI, if not, have heard of generative AI, and have most definitely heard of ChatGPT. It's been all over the news. ChatGPT's adoption was almost unprecedented in terms of how much time it took to adopt something like ChatGPT. It has over 90% of VC-backed companies are planning to launch generative AI in their products, and or like 64% of them plan to do that within this year, which is huge because that just highlights the growing interest and investment in leveraging generative AI for various business applications. And we are here too today by leveraging generative AI for our business application. So the potential applications of generative AI are vast, and it's really fascinating to see how it's shaping our world today. So, what is generative AI? Right? It is actually a cool subsect of artificial intelligence. Furthermore, it's a subsect of machine learning and an even more specific subsect of deep learning. It focuses on creating models capable of generating new and original data. And unlike traditional AI models that are mainly designed for classification or prediction, generative AI models aim to generate new content that isn't explicitly present in training data. And that's why they're pretty useful. And some of the generative AI techniques that you might have seen, and they're often used in deep learning algorithms, are like GANs, like generative adversarial networks, or variational autocoders like VAEs or autoregressive models. And these models learn patterns and underlying structures from large data sets and then use that knowledge to generate new samples that look like training data. And that's very fundamentally how it works. I'll dive deeper into some of the technicalities later. But all in all, it's a very cool new content, and it's really useful for folks in content creation. And it's pushing the boundaries of what we thought and we imagined AI could do. So, what are some of the generative AI tools out there? Now, I'm sure we've all heard of Chat GPT. It's the super smart chatbot that can generate human-like text. It's being used for all sorts of things like customer service, content creation. There's something similar out there that is open source, which is Hugging Chat. It's still in beta. It has a bit of a wait list, but it's pretty great. There's Bing AI, there's Bard AI, Google's Bard AI. And then those are kind of like general use cases. They're just large language models for a very high purpose general use case of generative AI. But then we've taken all of that and fine tuned it a little bit and started using them for specific use cases. So, like Notion AI and Jasper AI are both great at generating ideas and summarizing text. They're like almost having your own personal AI assistants. Copy AI is a pretty useful tool that helps you create high quality content quickly and easily. And last but certainly not the least, we have TinyMCE's AI Assistant now. It's a handy tool that's going to help you create and edit content with ease. We've tried to make it as user-friendly interface as possible, and it's perfect for anyone who wants to produce engaging content without any hassle. So just a quick rundown of some popular generative AI models. So if you're looking to boost your productivity or just kind of innovate on ideas for your own business, you can kind of see what's out there and what might specifically fit your use case. So why are so many businesses these days and companies and folks in tech like us going towards generative AI? It's because there's a lot of benefits. It really increases productivity for your end customer. If you include generative AI, for example, we're including it in our text editor, our end customers and their users are going to be able to quickly form templated emails or newsletters and generate content without having the headache of like writer's block. And it's actually intelligent and useful writing suggestions. There's also grammar correction. Sometimes you don't have a second pair of eyes. Sometimes you're a small company, and you could really use some sort of like tool to ideate your sentences against. There's of course fresh and innovative content ideas for writer's block, as I mentioned. There's also personalized content. So if you give generative AI models a specific persona or specific user, it can really tailor content around that. And I think what's really novel about this part is the efficient localization. Um, the world is going global with a lot of different applications, and the fact that generative AI models can translate and adapt content for different languages and cultures, ensuring that the content is accurately and sensitively localized for various audiences is significant. It can also significantly reduce the time and costs associated with traditional translation methods, making it really easy for some developers and customers to expand their businesses globally. So this is probably what some of the 5 big reasons why you decide to use generative AI maybe in your business today or for your customers. Now, with benefits, there are, of course, shortfalls. It's a technology, it's going to be buggy, and there are many shortfalls that come with generative AI today. I would say some of the things include there is bias in the training data. It's like any other AI model, it's going to be a little biased because it's all based on training data. We're going to really highlight and discuss hallucinations later, but there's a lot of inaccurate information out there and hallucinations that can happen if you don't provide the right kind of prompt or you're testing ChatGPT beyond its limits. So if you ask it to do math, GPT, which is a language model, isn't built to do math. So it's, of course, going to hallucinate. There's some incomplete data based on training data, cutoff dates that we'll talk about. There's privacy and security concerns. And there's, of course, the ethical and job market concerns and things like that. And probably the biggest shortfall and the struggle that you're going to have as a business, and we also kind of struggled with this, was the effective prompts. And it's probably why prompt engineering is becoming a big thing today. So Nielsen Norman Group actually posted something on LinkedIn about a few months ago where they had they're this huge user research group, and they said that less than 20% of the developed world are capable of writing effective prompts. which means 80% of us actually don't know how to write effective prompts to make the most out of things like ChatGPT and generative AI, which is where the biggest shortfall is because it's not the integration, the actual technology that you'll see is the hard part. It's providing useful prompts to generate useful and new content for our users. So, I have talked a lot about ChatGPT and generative AI. Let's see a live demo. I'd like everyone who's on the stream, I see around 24, 25 people over here. Let's try to jump over to ChatGPT. I want you to try to stump it. Tell me in the chat how you're doing that. I will also live demo how I'm personally going to stump ChatGPT, and we'll see how it goes. So let me quickly transition. Let's see. Share my screen over here. Awesome. So I have ChatGPT open over here. Um, and as I said, there are a few limitations of ChatGPT. And I would love to learn from you guys how you're doing it. So please type in our chat, but let me get started. So first thing is I told you ChatGPT, I in an ideal world shouldn't be able to do math. So I'm gonna ask it a very simple math question that if you put in your calculator, you should be able to get a response. So I'm gonna ask it to tell me, or what is 2 to the power of 7 over 3? Oop, it learned. Okay, this is a live demo, so let's try another thing. What is 4 to the power of 10 over 3? It says that 4 to the power of 10 over 3 is 21.544. And while the first answer was right, it's about 5.03. The second answer, because I haven't trained ChatGPT in the past, it says that it's 21.54. And that is actually inaccurate because 4 to the power of 10 over 3 is 101, which is way off. And the reason and the way this does it is it really doesn't compute math. It's a language model, so it's actually predicting the next best word, which is why we sometimes have these inaccuracies of how it can perform math. Another kind of example is just based on something we do with our standard example of founders. So if you ask it to name the 5 founders of TinyMCE, you will see that ChatGPT actually says it has a limitation. It has that cutoff date limitation that I was talking to you about. And the cutoff date for TinyMCE is 2021. And it's interesting that even though it has that cutoff date, TinyMCE is a 20-year-old company, and it should actually have gotten for us some of these founders' names, but it decided to say that, hey, I have a cutoff date limit and I actually don't know what a founder is in a traditional sense. Let's maybe try another thing. Name the 5 founders of maybe GitHub. Popular. Nice. So, and then it actually found and is telling us the 5 founders of GitHub and, or 4 founders of GitHub in this case. And actually corrected itself from finding a 5th founder. So as you can see, ChatGPT does have limitations. And if I were to ask it who is something like when was King Charles coronation or some kind of recent event, it's actually going to get stumped and not be able to give me very accurate and very precise information. Based on the simple fact that it has a limitation of 2021 as its training cutoff date. So now what I would like to do is see if anyone else has figured out how to stump ChatGPT. Any other examples that we have? I know there's 26 people out there. I know Kevin and Faith said hello. Has anyone else tried to figure out how they stump ChatGPT? Or are we going to be a little shy today? Yes, Kevin, I am using 3.5. The cutoff date for ChatGPT's 3.5 model is 2021. Okay, so if we don't have any volunteers, I'm actually going to jump back very quickly and move along with our presentation. But I hope that was a pretty fun, quick example for you guys to see on how we can stump ChatGPT and how it's not like a one solution fits all thing. Okay, so I very quickly showed you and talked about generative AI, GPT, but really, what is GPT? And GPT actually stands for Generative Pre-training Transformer. It's a if you've learned deep learning, if you've been involved in any machine learning project, you probably come across transformer. It's a very specific type of transformer. And I'm going to attempt in the next about 15 minutes to describe to you and explain what it is and how it works behind the scenes. So, you can call GPT a large language model. Some people call it universal approximators from computer science specifically. We, of course, call them generative AI. Sometimes they're called neural networks. We know that it's an artificial intelligence. To some, it's a simulator of culture. To others, it just predicts text. It's also a writing assistant. If you've used ChatGPT, you can plug in a little bit of your essay sometimes, get some feedback. It's pretty amazing for that. It's a content generator for people to do copywriting, Jasper AI, pseudo write, things like that. It's an agent. So the really hot thing right now, if you're on Twitter or X, I guess, is AutoGPT, Baby AGI. People are giving these things tools, letting them run a little bit free in the wild to interact with the world, computers, etc. And we use them as chatbots, obviously. But fundamentally, as I mentioned, the actual architecture is a transformer. So there's a lot of different ways to describe GPT. And honestly, any one of these ways is perfectly adequate to begin the conversation. But I think for our purposes today and what we use it with Tiny, let's stick to describing it as a large language model and more specifically, a language model. A language model, well, it's a model of language, if you allow me the tautology. But really, what it does is it produces a probability distribution over some vocabulary. So let us imagine that we have the task of predicting the next word of the sequence, I am. So if I give a neural network the words I am, what of all words in English is the next most likely word to follow that? At its very core is what GPT is trained to answer. And how it does is it has a vocabulary of like 50,000 words, let's say, and it knows roughly, given the entire internet, which words are likely to follow the other words of those 50,000 words in some sequence. Sometimes up to 2,000 words, up to 4,000, up to 8,000, and now up to 32,000 with ChatGPT 4, I believe. So basically, you give it a sequence. In this example that I have up on the slide, it's I am. And over the vocabulary of 50,000 words, you give it the likelihood of every single word that follows. So here it's perhaps I am happy, which is a fairly frequent, so we'll get that high probability for that word. If we look at all the words, all the utterances of English, it might be I am sad, maybe it's a little less probable. I am school, that should really be at the end because I don't think anyone would ever say that. But and then there's I am Bjork, that's a little bit random, not really probable, but it's still there because every word gets assigned a probability. And so to sum it up, for every word that we give GPT, it tries to predict what the next word is across those 50,000 words. And it gives every single one of those words a number that reflects how probable it is. And really, the magical thing that happens is you can generate new text. So if you give GPT I am, and it predicts happy as being the most probable word over 50,000 words, you can then append it to I am. So now you have a new kind of phrase or sentence in this case, I am happy, as being the most probable over the 50,000. And now you can see that you can take the I am happy, feed it back into the model, and you sample another word. I am happy today. And you feed into the model again and again and again. And there's a lot of different ways, if you think about it, that I am happy or I am sad can go. And you add a little bit of randomness, and all of a sudden you have this language model that writes essays and then can talk and a whole lot of things, which is really unexpected and something that we didn't predict even like 5 years ago. So that's kind of fundamentally at its core how ChatGPT works. So this is all relevant if we think about how to scale it up. And as we scale up this simple model that predicts words, we realize that if we give it more compute, a lot of things change. So the way we started training these large models actually didn't happen recently. It's been happening, I would say, since 2012 when AlexNet came out with the convolutional neural network, and we figured out that we can run models in GPUs. That was kind of the start of let's train something big. And so we realized that we can speed up the process and we can give a model lots of information. And what we saw with these transformers is that as we sped up the process, gave a lot of information from the internet, it learns more and more, and the probability that it gives you gets better. Oops. It gets better. And as it seems more examples, I would say, of English on the internet. So what really fundamentally happens is we have to train this model to be really large and really wide, and we have to train it for a really long time. So yeah, we have to train it for a really long time, and that is why as we do that and the model gets more and more better and expressive and capable, it also gets a little bit more intelligence for reasons it's fully not explained today. And now, what happened is when they did this and GPT-3 came out, this is not 3.5, when original GPT-3 came out, OpenAPI actually put in a sentence like, can you explain the moon landing to a 6-year-old? And it's saying, okay, you're giving me something like this, and I'm going to spit out a whole bunch of similar things. So at the time of GPT-3, it really didn't have the capability, and it didn't understand that it's being asked a question and has to respond with an answer. So the first iteration of GPT-3 did not have the apparatus and the interface for responding to any questions. So that's when OpenAI said, especially the scientists there said, let's come up with a solution. And that's what we know as ChatGPT today. They said, let's give our model a whole bunch of examples of question and answer. So the way they do it is they first train the model on the internet, then, and with the cutoff date, right? Because it's big, they've trained it only up to for 3.5 up to September 2021. And then they trained it on a whole bunch of questions and answers, such that the model actually, it has the knowledge of the internet, but also it knows that it has to be answering questions. And that is really how ChatGPT was born. That's how it gained 100 million users. And it was and actually still is a pretty big thing. So for a lot of people, when they saw that I can ask it questions, it answers back, and we can work together to come up to a solution, they went, oh, this thing is intelligent. And that's because it's fundamentally predicting words, and it is still a language model. But what is cool and what is useful is that it predicts words in the framework of a question and answer. And that's why the question becomes really important. And that's essentially what a prompt is. And that's what instruction tuning is. It's also what RLHF is, if you've ever seen that acronym, reinforcement learning with human feedback. All of those combined just means that the models that are coming out today in the space of generative AI and the types of language predictors that are coming out today work to operate in a Q&A form. GPT-4, I believe, has the Align model available, and it's a really solid foundation to build on because you can do all sorts of things. You can ask it to search the web, do Instacart. Actually, it has a plugin for Wolfram Alpha, so some of the math errors that you see will start to go away. But what you really need to know is once this model knows that not only does it have to predict language, it has to solve a problem. And the problem here is give me a good answer to my question. It's suddenly able to interface with the world in a really solid and useful way. And we have a lot of business applications and customers that can really, be enabled by them. So, the tuning the model into an agent with which to achieve an ambiguous goal is where the future of this type of generative AI is going. And this is all thanks to instruction tuning or prompts. So, ChatGPT, that's kind of like my quick overview of it. Of course, there's a lot more technical details that I missed out on, but just wanted to highlight what that is. Now, ChatGPT is, of course, amazing. I said it's magical. It can generate new text, it can help content creators, but there are some limitations. Number one, the training cutoff date. It's not up to date information. They have a 3.5 has a training cutoff date, the free version of until September 2021, which means it's not aware of any events that occurred after this date. So if you need to create content or your customers need to create content on recent events or developments, you might need to consider an alternative AI tool that's been trained on current information or do additional research to supplement what's missing. The second thing is hallucinations. It invents facts. The last time I asked it, it said that Carl Nefalia William Bedingfield is the founder of TinyMCE, and it does this because it was following Swedish name patterns. Sometimes it says that I can't find this because I don't have up to date information. So it can be very flaky and it can really make up facts. Another fun example that I wanted to include the screenshot of um, is that I think I had a coding example and just plugged it in and saw what is this? Can you give me a demo code for TinyMCE to plug in with Hugging Chat API? And it just started making up libraries because some of the tools are not available fully available. Or I said, hey, can you write this specific thing using a Python library? And it just made up some libraries. So, because it's a large language model, we do have to recognize that it is primary goal is to predict the next best word, and it is going to stick to that fundamental concept of what it's built to do. And last but not least, I would say the shortfall is handling sensitive data. Um, Generative AI teaches and improves itself by constantly learning from the information people provide. I have seen it learn, whether that's new information, feedback, correct information, false information. This means that whatever you tell ChatGPT, it can use to train itself to improve the accuracy of future responses and expand its knowledge. But it also means that don't put some of your top secret source code into ChatGPT, your personal information. Treat it like anything else on the internet. Be careful, and make sure your customers, especially if they don't have prior experience with AI, that they don't put anything proprietary, confidential, or private information into that. Um, Okay, so, and finally, before I sort of end my spiel on ChatGPT, I'd like to discuss the sort of 5 best practices for prompts. Because as we saw, the most important thing for this large language model like GPT or Hugging Chat to be useful to us is prompts. And the more instruction gives it better results. And ChatGPT can provide really better contents and ideas when you give it a clear instruction with useful information. So the number one thing is definitely provided a lot of instruction and clear instruction of what you want. For example, if you're writing a thing about, write a blog post about cars, maybe be a little bit more specific. Write a blog post about cars and how they will evolve over the next decade to adapt to climate change. Maybe start specifying format and length. Maybe you want this blog to be 800 to 1,000 words, or you want the newsletter to be a specific length, a specific format like HTML. So specify that in your prompt. The third thing is write it for your target audience. specifying that explain this to a 6-year-old versus explain this to a PhD really changes the tone in which ChatGPT provides its end result. And that will be very useful in terms of just content generation. Again, providing a persona alongside a target audience increases empathy in the actual writing itself. And last but not least, if you're writing for the internet, SEO is pretty big because that's how it can be discovered by your ideal reader. So once you've done your SEO research, include that in your prompt, and it would actually be very useful as ChatGPT spits out a response. So I think what is really important is to remember that just like any new writer, ChatGPT is only powerful as you make it with your prompts. And the more information and expectations that you can provide ChatGPT, the better content you will get back ultimately. So that is my quick spiel on ChatGPT. I believe I saw a little bit of interesting questions. Oh yeah, so C. Gordon had an interesting response here on how they tried to stump ChatGPT. They'd asked, "What is the average airspeed of an unladen swallow?" And ChatGPT apparently got the reference and then asked if I had a specific type of swallow. And he said that he then followed it up with what is the average airspeed, and that's how they were able to stump it. I think that's really cool, and thank you for sharing that with us, Gordon. Awesome. Thought I would quickly highlight that response. Keep it coming in the chat. It's very exciting to see how you guys have interacted with it. And now sort of hitting our halfway point of this workshop. So I'll kind of quickly transition into Tiny, our AI Assistant plugin, and then show you my live code demo of it. So TinyMCE, that is the company we work for. That is the YouTube channel you are on right now. Who are we? We are a web-based rich text editor that allows users to create content and edit content directly on a web browser. So we actually release it under the MIT license, which means it's free and open source. Actually, some of our core functionality is completely open source. It can be easily integrated into web applications using a very simple JavaScript API. The editor, I would say, has a very familiar interface to popular desktop word processors, so it's very easy for your end customers to format their content. We support a wide range of features like bold, italicizing, underlining. We also have advanced features like table creation, spell checking, and all new AI assistant. So fundamentally, how it works and why it's pretty nice to use TinyMCE is because it's a two-part architecture where the editor itself is rendered using JavaScript and communicates with a server-side component via RESTful APIs. So what happens is the separation of concerns allows developers on our platform to customize and extend editor's functionality without affecting its core performance, which means this is the same case for our AI plugin as well. You just have to simply spell out the configurations and you will be able to see the sort of direct impact, and you won't have to worry about sort of the core functionality behind the scenes. So the AI assistant, for example, is what we are launching with TinyMCE 6.6. If you would like to have that today, I will talk about pricing and how you can sign up. But go ahead onto, if you're an existing customer, there's a contact form on our AI assistant page where you can actually ask to get AI added on for 14-day free trial. If you are a new customer, just sign up for a new Tiny Cloud account, and you will get the AI assistant for a 14-day free trial. So what do we have with this new AI assistant? I would say we have three big things. Number one, probably the most important thing, is pre-written prompts. So research show that pre-written prompts return more useful responses from generative AI apps, and they're more likely to increase usage among beginners. So we have the option for you to use our default out of the box prompts that have been tried and tested, engineer your own because you know your customers the best, or just let your users maybe write their own, write them from scratch. The choice is yours. And we kept that kind of our AI shortcuts or AI prompts completely customizable. We also have a familiar UI with our AI assistant. This will kind of mimic the UI of ChatGPT, which we're all used of. You ask a prompt, you can either insert it, try again because regenerate because you're not satisfied with that response, or stop responding because it's buffered too much. And as I said, last but not least, it's a very flexible interface. It really can be set up in almost a few quick steps. And I will be demoing that soon and shortly, but just wanted to show you how simple it is. There's a AI plugin that you add. You add the AI dialog and AI shortcuts to configurations to your toolbar. Set up your AI request response, and then if you want, you can customize your prompts as well. So that is sort of essentially on a very high level how we have structured our new AI assistant. I'm more of a believer in showing by demoing, so I will get started on that very quickly. So I'd like everyone, if you've not already created your OpenAI API key or API account, please go to platform.openai.com, create your account. If you have, then go ahead and create a new API key. That API key, I believe, will last you about 4 to 5 days at this moment. If you are logging in from a business account, please don't create a new account with your business account unless it's already has ChatGPT enabled. This is because your business account, I believe, they don't let you create new API keys that work unless you're paying for it. So just as a heads up, go ahead and do that and navigate to platform.openai.com to create and get your API key. Now let me actually switch over, and I'm going to provide everyone to play around while I'm coding with a sneak preview of our TinyMCE's demo. So it will actually ask you for an OpenAI key. Once you provide that key, you should be able to log in. Let me show you how that looks very quickly. So this is kind of the screen that you will see. Let me very quickly. Actually, let me quickly share this tab so I'm not sharing a API key with you. But once you enter your API key, you should see this sort of quick demo. Before I code, let me run this demo that we've hosted on the cloud for you, and everyone should be able to access it. I'm going to ask it to write an email welcoming everyone to the TinyMCE's AI Assistant workshop today at 3 p.m. And it quickly spat out an email for me, suggested places I could include a link. There are some things that we don't have a lineup of speakers today. It's a demo workshop, so if I'd provided a little bit more detail, that would have worked. But I think this is pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and insert it. I'm also going to quickly show you the demo of some of our AI shortcuts. That was the AI dialog box that we saw right now. The AI shortcuts, we have a long list of pre-written prompts. Let's say I don't know what AI is, even though I'm at the workshop. I can ask ChatGPT to explain what AI is to me, and it will quickly split out like a explanation of that. Maybe I want to insert it further. Maybe I don't. I could also ask it to take a piece of content, correct the grammar around it. The possibilities are truly endless, and we'd love to see how our customers take this and sort of roll with it. And yeah, looking forward for you guys to sort of experiment with it. Now let's jump into the very interesting part and why we're all here. It's the code. So let me quickly share my screen. Share my screen. Awesome. Oh, let's see. That's interesting. Awesome. So I quickly have my screen pulled up over here, and I hope everyone can see the screen. So what I have over here is a very simple templated skeleton code that you can actually find on our website to initiate this code. All of this code is completely available on our website, and I would highly recommend folks to, play around with it, grab the code. I'll also attach a blog post. And yeah, so this is just a very simple HTML code for integrating TinyMCE into our web page. We have some customization for its features and like appearance. And yeah, it sets up a HTML document. We have a text area element that will be replaced by the Tiny editor. We have our initial script tag over here that will load the TinyMCE library, the specific 6 dev library. And we also notice that I haven't included the Tiny Cloud API key. I would recommend that you create your Tiny Cloud account and put in your API key over here so that we can pull this in. Inside this other script tag, what we're running is essentially initializing the TinyMCE editor with various configuration options. This API key is actually the OpenAI's API key, which we will later be using as I add the AI functionality to Tiny. And then, of course, the HTML itself, the body contains a text area with this editor element that we have selected over here. And that's what will be replaced by the TinyMCE's editor. So yes, you can also, as John has highlighted over here, you can also get the starter code on your account screen when you log on at tiny.cloud. So I'll just put that comment over here just in case anyone didn't get a chance to see that. So to follow along, what we're first going to do is I'm not going to put in my API keys yet because I do not want you guys to see my API keys. But for now, I'll walk you through how to sort of get started. So first, the AI Assistant is a plugin. So we would add it as a plugin to our configuration over here. And then the second thing is that we want to add it to our toolbar, as we saw earlier. And the way we would do that is we would add that. I'm going to put a separation over here, and I'm going to add it as an AI dialog and AI shortcuts. And that's how we would add the two icons over here. This AI dialog is the prompt box where we were able to chat, similar UI to a chat GPT. And the AI shortcuts is the customizable prompts. If you don't provide anything more than this, we will load your editor with our predefined prompts. But if you want to customize it, we provide you the option to do that as well. Now, probably the most important part, sort of the meat of this, is the AI request promise. So the AI, so essentially what happens over here is the AI request is the way that it's a piece of JavaScript code essentially that sets up an AI request using OpenAI's API to interact with ChatGPT. And specifically, we're going to be interacting with the GPT 3.5 Turbo model for generating text based on the user prompts. So that's what we're going to be doing with the code over here. And yeah, like let's break it down. So the two things that your AI request is going to take, like the two parameters, is a request, which will contain the user's prompt, and the respond with, which I'll type here, which will contain a function to send back the AI generated response as part of your promise. So we're going to have a request and a respond with. And then I'm going to open it up. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up something called an open AI options. And whoops. And that is just an object. It's created with, I'm going to put in the necessary parameters for making a post request to the OpenAI API. And this will include the model, the temperature, max tokens, and the user's message prompt itself, which is the request. So interesting. It's like, where's my cursor going? So here we have a method. We want it to be a post method. We want our headers. I think it's headers. There it is. And then for headers, we want our content type. It's going to be an application, JSON. And then we want to authorize it because it expects an API key in a bearer token format. And this kind of just did an autofill for me to select my API key over here. And then that's my header. Now, and this header is essentially what handles like your authorization and contact point for the response. Now, part of this is also to include things in your body. And that's what I'm going to do over here for my OpenAI options. And then what I'm going to do is JSON.stringify. It's actually filling in some things for me, but I don't want it to do that. So I'm going to enter. And then what I'm going to do is what I want to do is actually say I want to have my model and I want it to be GPT 3.5 turbo. Then I'm going to say I want my temperature to be 0.7. So what essentially like, so this is going to be an interesting thing because I just realized I've not been explaining what a temperature is. So essentially, when you're using the GPT 3.5 model, a temperature is basically your way of defining randomness and how random you want your response to be. And when I say randomness, it also can be thought of as like how creative. The general consensus in the developer community has been, especially for us, we've seen that having it somewhere greater than a 0.5 or a 0.6 can actually yield to a little bit better of a response because it controls how creative and how varied your output that's generated is. Yeah. Okay. So the next thing that I'm going to specify is the max tokens. That's going to be about 800. The max tokens essentially is just setting the maximum length of generated text in terms of tokens, words, or characters, however you want to think about it. And then the last thing I also want to do is I need to pass in my prompt, right? So I'm going to do that very quickly. And I'm going to say I want the role to be user, and I want my content to be request that we're passing into our AI request .prompt. And that's what we're sending it in the body of our response. Awesome. So that is the object OpenAI options. And now what we want to do is we want to actually call on this respond with function and, sort of make that API call. So I'm going to do respond with dot string signal. Oops. And then I do window.fetch. And then if you look at the formal ChatGPT thing, API endpoint, this is the endpoint I'm going to be pinging for the moment. Awesome. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say signal and then open AI options, pass that along as part of my request over here. And then what I'm going to do is because this is promise, I also need to make sure I handle my API call, because at the end, things can happen when you're making a network request. So I'm going to quickly say then async async response over here. And then I say if, response.ok. Then I want it to return response.json. Else return promise.reject. And I will say that it failed to communicate with OpenAI API. I like that suggestion. And then I will also await response.text. Oops. Let me move that very quickly over here and then move that over here and done. Cool. Awesome. So now I've handled the situation where it failed to communicate with my OpenAI response. And then I also want to be able to handle this dot then to say, now, what if I want to give you specifically why it failed to communicate with the ChatGPT API? So I have some error handling just in the responsive time. Let me look this up. That has been suggested. So I will copy paste that from OpenAI and use that. Awesome. There's an extra parentheses. So here I've added some more error handling just to make sure that my response doesn't get affected, just in case it fails to connect with OpenAI, and then I get a data back on understanding what the error was, what happened, was it the API, things like that. So we've handled all the error handling, we've handled all the communication, and what's left to do is simply change these OpenAI keys and see it run live in demo. Typically, how I like doing this is I just do start a server using my index HTML. If you don't start a server, what happens is that you want to keep your refer policy to origin, and sometimes you will see like a TinyMCE error on your editor. So putting it through a server for your local port is pretty important there. So let's get started. I am going to actually switch screens over here and stop my screen share and then share screen. I'll switch back over here, but actually switch back over here. Let me quickly, while you guys are waiting, add my API keys to the information I had showed you. Awesome. So the API keys are now added. And now when I share this tab, you should see that the error went away and I officially have a fully functioning thing that is very similar to the AI Assistant demo that we had seen previously. So you can ask it to do very similar things, summarize, so on and so forth. Let me ask it to write an email newsletter for TinyMCE's launch of the AI Assistant plugin. We can clearly see that I'm not great at spelling. But yeah, let's write an email newsletter for TinyMCE's launch of AI Assistant plugin. Let's see what it comes up with. This is the code we had just put in. Thinking just a little bit. And there we go. Welcome to the launch. We have a fully templated email. You can insert it and, our customers can get very quickly started. They can also sort of try to edit these links. Maybe they want to sort of explain this a little bit more. They can find out a little bit more details, maybe add it, copy this information, add it to what an AI assistant plugin in. As you see, the possibilities are truly, truly endless. And that's kind of like the magic behind our AI assistant plugin and how quick and easy it is truly to sort of set it up. So now that I've kind of switched over to that, let me switch back to tell you how you can get this once again. If you are interested, if you're an existing customer, just go hit our contact form over here. We will put the link in the chat as well, and you can add it to your account for a 14-day free trial. If you're a new customer, sign up with tiny.cloud. You'll get a 14-day free trial with the AI Assistant plugin. Our product roadmap is completely transparent and open to the public. If you have any feedback, I would love and highly appreciate learning from you and understanding what we can do to improve. Please share your experiences, insights, suggestions with our product team, our engineering team. Pressure test it. Let us know how it's going, and we would be very happy to hear from you on this. I've also included a few basic resources that I think will be very valuable and useful. One is my favorite article on ChatGPT, the 101 article, a little bit more information on TinyMCE's AI Assistant, how to integrate with ChatGPT, and a tutorial, as well as how to write prompts for ChatGPT, and then our docs on our AI Assistant as well. So that's kind of it. Once again, I am Renee Sagosh. The DevRel manager here at TinyMCE. Connect with me. Let me know how you're using it. If you're a customer, I would love to hear from you as well. And thank you all for, taking 1 hour of your Wednesday, joining me here and learning more about TinyMCE, our new AI assistant, ChatGPT, and more. Stay tuned. We'll have more webinars coming up this year and really excited to be a part of this community. Thank you.